about kind of things that are going on. Notice what are the camera angles like in here? What is going on with that kind of thing? They're either point of view, we're either seeing what he's seeing or they're close up, right? And they're very close. And that point of view is kept there by, one is like just this start where you just kind of sit there and wait, and then you hear sounds and you're just kind of hanging out waiting for it to start. And we realize, as he's waking up, he's coming out of this fog of being knocked out. But notice this, I mean, they are always, like in this car, it's kept really close. How does that? I mean, one of the questions to think about is how do these camera angles, what do they do for us as a viewer? Right? How do they help us see it better, understand what he's going through? Think about that, any of those things. And that's contrasted really well with at the end, when he's finally, after he's been washed back down the river, ended up where he started 2 or 3 times, these moments where he's finally kind of crawling out of here. One, we also see bigger spaces too. And then right before this is the moment where he's, turns over and he's looking up at the sky and we see like this blue, or we'll see, the tops of the trees. But until then, in different places, once in a while he gets that view of what's going on. But until then, we're just constantly getting, come on, look up, come on, show us. Show us, wait, no, eyes rolling back in your head. No, none of that. But we get, that's a sign, right? What do his hands really look like? And so again, mise-en-scene is always, because is that girl real? Yes, no, right? The answer's both, right? We finally learn at the end, his girlfriend or wife or whatever that they started off with, but she's not actually there. Right. And of course, I mean, that whole he kills her, and they may need a little therapy once he's, back in civilization. I don't know what's going on there, right? But that stress, here we go, right? Just the blue sky, nothing but blue. We get it twice like this versus all of those other moments, right? So many other moments we can just kind of even here, right? Close. It's right there. It's close. It's close. It's close. I mean, that's a little bigger, but he's in a bigger space. Constantly here. It's low. It's on the ground. Right? So a number of things are happening with camera angle. Now let's think about that flashback for a moment. It is not until the end that we know what happened. What's the significance of that? What does that do for us, it being at the end? Because he doesn't know either, right? I mean, he wakes up, hello, my name is, and he's like, he doesn't even know. And so we're figuring it out right along with him. So we don't know. Now, just think about it. If we'd had that whole story at the first, would we probably be watching this movie at all? I mean, it really would be a lot more boring. I mean, I know it may not be. I don't know for me. I'm kind of entranced by it all the time. But I mean, it really would have been, oh, here's what happened. He pulled him off the road. And then we would have been like, okay, about time. Come on, save him. Let's know what happened. But instead it becomes this journey of this guy, trying to get out of his situation. But then also, as he's piecing this together, he hears those little bits on the radio. He's putting this together. Not sure if he wants to. Right? Whenever she tells him, no matter what you do, you're fucked. Right? And is she really telling him that? Yes. Maybe, even though it is mind, exactly, right? So it's really him telling him that. Do you think the dog's real? That's the only part I was yes and no. Yes and no. But did it? And every time he gets a hallucination, we get that hallucination too, right? I mean, Greenspan, as the director, is putting us in this guy's shoes from everywhere, from where the camera is, when it's low on the ground, when he lays back and he looks up, and we're always like in his space. When he, at the end there, where he looks at his hands and they're not scratched up or anything, and takes a little bit to realize, oh, this is. I mean, he has to come out of it when we realize it is a hallucination too. See, also, and it's real subtle, right? Like that was one little thing there at the end where he does that, where he looks at his, he's already wrapped his hands. He's looked at them before, and of course they're scratched up and bleeding. And that moment when he's laying on the ground, and he looks at them and they look fine. It's real subtle. That's a shift, right? He's using me sensing in that way. This is that shift into his hallucination. I have never looked. You could write about this for a paper, if you just wanted to write a paper about a film. I've never looked to see if that happens with the other hallucinations. Are there those little clues there, right? Are those little things that kind of help us see that we don't notice, that are subtle little changes in that reality? That little bit of me sensing where he goes from torn up hands to not at all. So definitely, that's definitely there. And that whole flashback, how does it change us? How does it affect us as viewers to find out at the same time as him? What is the significance of that? Why does that matter? How does it give us a different kind of idea? And of course, we've got all sorts, like here it's going to the cave, all sorts of lighting and shadow, which again, what is that doing? How is that working? Those kinds of things. And then also the sound, because we have like non-diegetic music. We've got like those horns and those organ notes and these kind of deeper, higher notes all the way through this. There is sound all the way through this. But there's also that diegetic sound, that sound of the world. And then just like with Pretty Dead Girl, the thing to notice about it is not that there's sound, but those small moments when there's not any. How does that, create a feeling? How does that signify something? Those are all things to think about, possibilities out there. Thoughts? Anybody want to throw anything out there? Hi, I'm Troy McClure. We could have watched one of those films. And then, one of the things I love, and this is not necessarily talking about anything cinematography, but at the end, once he figures out that he's not Raymond Plazzi and that he's not a bad guy, before all through this, he's protecting their bodies, right? These guys, he's like, wants that mountain lion to get away from him. He's like, get away. And at the end, you notice, man, he takes his good loving leg and he's shoving that body out there. He's like, here, have the asshole. So, it is it is at that moment, there's no car around him. He has no gun with bullets, nothing like that. But also it is a shift in, him realizing who he is also. So I think it's kind of ironic and pretty funny. Oh man, is he fixing to see his car again? Because
what about the man that was robbed?
Well, is that, let's see, where is he?
Because it shows him in the cave again, right?
Yeah.
And he was dead.
He got, right? So they all do end up getting got, because there were 3 guys in there. So there's the guy that's in the back of the car. Then he gets out, and there's the guy that came back for the money, right? So there's the guy in the back of the car that gets pulled out and eaten. There's the guy that came back for the money that somebody ended up in the cave, right? That's the guy who ended up in the cave. And then we know Raymond Plazzi ended up, on the roadside there and, whatever, died from trauma or whatever happened to him. So they all end up, it is this kind of, divine justice kind of thing. So. And then in the end, the mountain lion drags him away. So look at this. Look how close this is and low to the ground it is, too. So again, like, why is he constantly doing that? Because he could have given us much wider shots and everything like that. No, it's a unique little movie. Now, when you write about it, we're not going to write about Adrien Brody. This is the actor, Adrien Brody. He got paid to do this film. Do you think he's actually ever really, really experienced this other than in the course of his acting? No, right? Just like Stephen King really has met no crazy clowns from outer space or wherever they're from. I don't know. I didn't read or watch it. So, right, he's just a person who makes up stories. So in this, and because we are really talking about, you're talking about the film, we're talking about one, Greenspan as the director. So I always take the shortcut and simply go to IMDb, internetmoviedatabase.com, and you got to make sure and get the right one because there's a couple of them. 2011, wait, not 01. And it'll give you all the stats. So, oh, maybe it's 2010. Came out on DVD in 2011, no doubt. There we go. And this will give you all the stats so that we have, I'm so not used to looking at it on my computer. So we've got Adrien Brody, and notice he's called Man. So you would say the Man, because we don't know his name, do we? In fact, he doesn't even know his name, right? He finally knows he's not Raymond Plazzi. Okay, that's about all we know. The woman, we have some other names here, Man in the Woods, that kind of thing. But really, your focus is going to be talking on probably about mostly on these two, the man and the woman. And so in this case, since we don't know his name, we don't call him Adrien Brody because Adrien Brody's the actor, not this character. We have to differentiate between the character and the actor. And so we're going to call him the man. When the man does this, the man does that kind of thing. He, this, he, that, okay? So in writing about it, call him the man. If you want to mention, like in your introduction, if you say wrecked, the man, and you can put in parentheses, played by Adrien Brody or just Adrien Brody, only do that once. You really don't need to do it because we're not writing a movie review, anything like that. We're all familiar with this, so you don't have to establish that. If you want to, you can. And then, of course, what we're looking for, too, is the director. And so right down here, Greenspan, details, box office, company credit. Where did I miss it? Find. There we go. Michael Greenspan. Okay, and, of course, you can get that in the credits as well. We can go to the end and hit the credits, or at the first. So when we talk about Greenspan, of course, we're talking about who makes all those final creative decisions. So who decides on these close-ups, this, that, whatever? What is the overall intent? Well, that belongs to Greenspan. Just like when Stephen King writes the book, the overall intent is his. But we read a lot of parts that are characters thinking, not King's thinking. It's the character. We differentiate between the two. Okay. Now, a couple of other things. Let's see. This was just to make some notes if you want. This is on YouTube, so you want to go back, you will need to. It would behoove you to go back, rewatch certain parts. I do have a kind of straight up, simple, where'd it go? There it is. A straight up kind of simple approach to this. So one is, first of all, remember you're answering one of these questions. So that's your first thing you've got to do is you've got to decide, I'll just stand it around that way. You've got to decide which question does fit. So does fit. Is words good or yes? My son would be proud of me. That was a good nonsense string. I'm going to go home and tell him is words good or yes? Yeah. So you've got to decide what question you're going to answer. You want to look through them. You've watched the film now. Say what stands out for you. And you're going to need to go back to that. When we go back to the film essay, and it's on remember, it's not so many days ago on the syllabus. You can go straight to the Kelly.Ninja, the website for film. But the film exam and in-class essay has, whoops. Well, click on it, Kelly. All right, I will. Words as such make sense not today in my head. And remember, it's got the basic elements. So you want to decide how to fill in those blanks, right? How does that all come together? Oh, that helps if you plug it into. How does it all come together? And then once you decide which one you want to look at, Make sure and go back to the Yale Film Guide and look at that where it's described in a little more detail. When you look at that definition a little more, it does help. It'll help you kind of get those ideas. So you've got to decide which question you're going to answer. You're going to be talking about those elements, so make sure you go through and review that. That's why we've been doing vocabulary, because you need to be talking about the vocabulary overall. I mean, be talking about those things. So decide which question you'll answer. Then look through the film and find examples. You may find examples in different places if you want to talk about framing, or you want to talk about that use of flashback or sound or whatever it is you're going to talk about. Or you may just choose to focus on one moment. What is that moment? Why is that first scene, that first 5 or so minutes that we get into it, where it starts with black and we don't hear, see anything, but we hear what's going on there. What is Greenspan doing and how does it work? What elements does he use and how do they work to create an effect, give us a message, a feeling, whatever your question is. And then, so go through and find those, describe those. Now I'm giving you a homework.